Well, we'll just go back to the top of the evening to A Bronx Tale. You know, I happen to love stories about Italians, and particularly musicals for me are all, you know, very incredible. But to me, A Bronx Tale is something really special. And as I've thought about it, and I've seen the musical and I've seen the movie many times, and one of the things that sticks with me is that it really is a love story in a way, because it's about a young fellow's love of his neighborhood, the love of his elders, the love of the people around him, and how everyone shaped him to become the person he became. I think that's a remarkable story. It's Chazz Palminteri's real life story. You know, he's an actor who has probably been in 50 movies. He's been on stage. He's a playwright. He's been nominated for Academy Awards. And the real thrill is he's here with us tonight. Please welcome Chazz Palminteri. Yeah. Hey, Chazz, my man. There you go. Excellent. Well, welcome. Is this, I understand, your first trip to Cleveland?
This is my first time here, yes. It's a great,
Wonderful.
great city, great city. Great city.
Well, I love the story, and what I find so remarkable is we're going on almost 30 years since the story actually began.
Right.
So take us through that journey of how this came about.
Okay. Well, it was I was an actor in New York. I was doing theater in New York, and it was 1986, and I decided that I would go to LA and try my luck there. You know, because I was mostly doing theater, and in the 80s, all the film and television was done in LA. So I went out to LA, and, you know, I got lucky right away. I got on Hill Street Blues, and if you guys, anybody remember that show, and thanks. You know, and a bunch of those shows, and you know, I was doing okay, and I was really feeling really happy about the way it was going. But then after about a year, I ran out of the money that I made on there, and so I got a job as a doorman. I used to box, you know, and so I used to work as a bouncer once in a while in New York when I needed money from an acting gig, you know, back and forth I would go. So I got a job as a doorman, and one night, I'm doing a very special party, and this guy comes over to me and he starts saying, "Let me in." He was really abusive to me. And I said, "Just could you take it easy?" And he looked at me and said, "Do you know who I am?" Now, when somebody says, "Do you know who I am?" to a doorman, that's the worst thing in the world you could say. I said, "Yes, you're the guy who's not getting in tonight." So he got very upset and said, "You will be fired in 15 minutes. I have to tell you this, that's why it's the beginning of the story. So I said, "Oh, really? Get online." And all of a sudden, the owner comes out of the club, and I hear the owner look at him and go, "Swifty." And the person was Swifty Lazar. Now, Swifty Lazar, for those of you who don't know, was the biggest agent in the world at the time. And it was his party, and I just told him he couldn't come in. Now, I'm an actor, and I just refused the biggest agent in the world. And I was fired in 15 minutes, just like he said. So I drove home. I went back to my little apartment, my dumpy little apartment in North Hollywood, and I was very upset. And then I looked, I sat down. I didn't know if I should go back to New York or stay in LA. And I looked on the refrigerator, and there was an index card that my father gave me when I was very young. I always took it with me. And it said, "The saddest thing in life is wasted talent." And that's my father's line. And I never, you know, I looked at that and I said, "Well, you know what? If they won't give me a part, I'll write one myself." And I went to Thrifty Drugstore and I got 5 tabs of yellow paper. I came back to my apartment and I said, "What am I going to write?" I said, "You know what? I'll write about the killing that I saw when I was 9 years old." I don't know, anyone who saw the movie, that's exactly the way it happened. I was sitting on a stoop, and this man killed a man right in front of me. And I looked at him, and he looked at me. And the next minute, I knew my father dragged me up the steps. The cops came upstairs, and I refused to rat on the guy. And that was it. It was a bond between us. And the next day when Sonny saw me and I saw him, he was like, I know that you know that I know that you know. And that's really what started the whole thing. And I said, I'll write about the dynamic between my father, Sonny, and me, the boy in the middle, and how I took the best of Sonny, the best of my father, and I became a man. I just had this idea, and I just kept writing and writing. And after 10 months, I had a 90-minute, one-man show where I played all 18 parts. I figured out, let me be the only one on stage. They got to notice me, right? So I didn't want to take any chances. So I did this. I had this idea. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I wanted to play all the characters, and it worked. It just became the hottest thing in LA at the time, and the crowds kept coming, the audiences kept coming, and after 2 weeks, the reviews were pretty crazy, great. And then I got offered $250,000 from a studio to walk away from it because they wanted the rights to my story. And I had $200 in the bank at the time. I said, well, I want to play Sonny and I want to write the screenplay. They said, impossible. You're a great actor, but nobody knows who you are. Can't do it. I said, well, then I'm not selling it. And people thought I was crazy. 2 weeks later, I get offered $500,000. And again, I said, I play Sonny, I write the screenplay. They said again, no. So finally, I signed with the big agency, William Morris at the time, right then. And they said, look, there's another studio that wants to talk to you. I said, okay. I walked into this big studio. The guy had a piece of paper on his big table, and he slid it to me in front of me and said, sign that paper. Tomorrow you'll have a check for $1 million. I was like, my first words out of my mouth were, is there a bathroom around here? I did say that. And he said, the executive bathroom is right there. I said, excuse me 1 second. I went into the bathroom, shut the door, and I looked in the mirror, I'm washing my hands and saying, $1 million, 200 bucks in the bank I have. And then I put my hand in my pocket, I took out my dad's card, because I took it with me this time. For some strange reason, why I took it with me, I don't know why. And it says, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I just said, okay. I went back outside. I said, look, I'll sign that paper. And I could see they got all excited. I said, but I play Sonny, and I write the screenplay. They said, Chazz, I'm sorry, we can't do it. This is never going to happen. And I got up and I said, well, I guess the meeting's over then. My agents are looking at me like, oh, my God, 10% of 1 million, And we walked out. I left, and then 2 weeks later, the crowds kept getting bigger and bigger at the theater. And then I finished doing the one-man show, and somebody came up, the stage manager walked over to me and said, hey, Robert De Niro's in your dressing room. He's waiting for you. And I said, Robert De Niro? What? He said, yeah, you just saw the show. So I walked down there, and I walk in my dressing room, and Bob was sitting in the corner, he's like, so, it was surreal. Like, this is like, I'm this young guy, 30 years ago this is, and I'm like, I'm looking, I go, this is the guy, the Godfather, Raging Bull, And I said, hey Bob, how you doing? And he goes, man, it's very good, it's very good. He goes, he said, he told me that was the greatest one-man show he's ever seen. He goes, you did a whole movie on stage. How did you do that? He goes, that's a movie. He goes, let's make it. And I said, yeah, but Bob, he goes, I know. Imagine this, I told this to Robert De Niro. He says, you want to play Sonny and you want to write the screenplay? I said, yes. He goes, well, let me tell you how I feel, Chazz. You'll be great as Sonny, and you should write the screenplay because it's your life. I'll play your father, Lorenzo, and I'll direct it. And we'll go partners, and if you shake my hand, that's the way it'll be. I shook his hand, and that's the way it was. And that skyrocketed my career, and then Bullets Over Broadway and Usual Suspects and all the movies came after that.
So those words from your father really guided you in a pretty difficult circumstance.
Yeah.
And the film comes about. Robert directs that.
Right.
You come back to New York? Do you come to New York with it from that point? Because it's had so many lives. That's what's so fascinating
Well,
about
it's
this.
the first time in history has anything been a one-man show, a major movie, and a Broadway musical. Things have been a book, but not this is the first time that has ever happened. So when we did the musical, it was very important to me because the story was so great. I knew it worked great as a one-man show. It was a big hit on Broadway when I came back to Broadway as a one-man show. And it was a big hit in the movies. So I really wanted it to be great. So Tommy Mottola, the great movie producer, said, look, this is a great story. We got to make this a musical. So I said I really wanted, there's only one person I like, and that's Alan Menken. I said, Alan Menken, 8-time Academy Award winner, Tony winner.
Yeah,
I
good
said,
one to like.
He's the guy. And I wanted Alan Menken, and we got Glenn Slater, 3-time Tony nominee, and we got Robert De Niro, who directed the movie, Jerry Zaks, who 8-time Tony guy, who directed the one-man show, co-direct the Broadway musical. So it's an amazing, amazing group of incredible, talented people. I wrote the book, and they did the music, and here we are.
So the story is about the story of life at 187th
Right.
and Belmont. Do you go back to the old neighborhood? Do we see the old neighborhood?
Yeah, I go back there once in a while. I mean, I go back once a month sometimes to go shopping. I mean, I still have people who go, hey, see. When I hear the word see, I go, oh boy, who's this? You know, I never know who it is. You know, it's funny. I mean, my first real big break, Gina, well, it wasn't a big break, but my first where I got an agent was 1983. I got a part as an understudy on Broadway. So I understudied the lead, and that was my first really big breakthrough, even though I was just an understudy. So I went back to my neighborhood, and I saw all my friends, and I said, hey, I'm going to be on Broadway. And they were like, oh, my God. And they're hugging me, you know, oh, my God, we're so excited for you. So some of the big wise guys came over to me and said, hey, we want to come and see you. We'll come and see. And I said, well, you can't come and see me. So he got mad because he thought I was embarrassed or something. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm an understudy. So they don't know what an understudy is. These guys are gangsters, you know what I mean? He goes, you know. He said, what's an understudy? I said, well, if something happens to the guy, I swear to God, not realizing what I was saying. I said, if something happens to the guy, then I get to go on. And I walked away, not realizing what I just said. 5 minutes later, he walks over to me while I'm talking to my friends. And he goes, hey, Chazz, come here. You know, he kind of takes me to the side, and he says, you want to go on? So I said, I didn't know what he said right away. I said, what? He says, you know, you want to go on. And then I realized what he said, and I went, oh, my God, no. No, he goes, don't worry. We'll make it look like a mugging. Nobody's going to know. Now I'm begging for this guy's life, please. Finally, I said, please, Carmine, no, this is not, you don't do this in theater. You can't do this. And he said, okay. So that night, as an understudy, you have to watch the show. You know, that night, I was sweating. I sat down in the back, and I'm watching the show, and I seen the guy up there doing the part, the lead. And he was really nasty to me, you know. He wasn't nice to me. And I sat in the back, and I looked at him, and I said, you don't know how lucky you are, buddy. That's a true story.
What a great story.
Yeah. You know, for those of you who saw the movie, that really is Eddie Mush in the movie. That's actually the guy, Eddie Mush, who was the bad luck guy.
Oh,
we put him in.
really?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the movie has all these characters in there. So, actually, Bob, myself, and Joe Pesci are the only actors in the movie, real actors. Everyone else, we audition people off the street.
Wow. And
Everyone else.
Is Sonny a real person?
Yes, Sonny was a real person, yes. Yeah.
In the story, we hear about the love story. There's
Yeah.
a love interest as well.
Well, yeah, I fell in love with I fell in love, as you can, I guess, at 17. I saw this black girl in school, and she looked at me and I looked at her. It was one of those kind of, she liked me and I liked her, and we started like sneaking around, dating each other. And this was like Robert Kennedy just got assassinated, Martin Luther King got assassinated at that time. So it was really a turbulent time in the 60s. But her and I was sneaking around, and I saw the racism in my neighborhood and how racism is bred down from one generation to the next. And I wanted to talk about that in the movie and in the play. I was able to do that in the play a lot because it was important to me, because my father was not a racist. My father taught me that, you accept people for who they are. But I grew up with some guys who were taught to be racist. So I thought that was an interesting concept, and I wanted to put that in the movie. I felt very strongly about that.
Well, of the interesting things that I love, isn't
Oh,
that
well,
wonderful?
thank you.
Yeah. It's a great sentiment. But of the many things that I love about the story, as I was saying earlier, is that it's really a story about love and respect. And one would assume that your father was the good guy giving you good advice, and
Right.
Sonny was not the good guy giving you bad advice. Was that true?
No, that wasn't true. Sonny told me exactly the same advice that my father said. That's what makes the story so unique. It's not about black and white, it's about gray and gray. You know what? Sonny said, he was the one who said, you got to get out of the neighborhood, you got to do something with your life. Because I said, yeah, I like to write, I want to be an actor. He said, well, then go do it. And my father was like, you have a dream, you go do it. But my father said he didn't want me hanging out with those guys, because he said, you will be influenced by him. No matter what they say or what Sonny tells you, you will be influenced. And he was right. I started getting influenced by them. I was this young kid, and all of a sudden now Sonny changed my name. They called me C, and I started getting I was like the guy in the neighborhood, And I did start to feel like a big shot. And I knew that was creeping up on me. And my dad was always like, you're going to go to college. Finally, my dad and my mom were right, And after Sonny got killed, I went off and I went to college, and I became who I am.
So who in that, what a
Well, thanks.
what a creation. Who in your family immigrated to the United States? Where did they come from?
My mother's parents were from Messina, and my father was from Agrigento, a town called Menfri. And so I'm 100% Sicilian.
You're one of my people?
100%.
And
100%.
Do you cook?
I cook, yeah.
Make your own sauce?
Yes, I make my own. Of course. What Italian doesn't make his own sauce? Come on. No. Don't you remember the line from the movie? Do you know how to make sauce? That's a big line from the movie.
Well, it's a wonderfully engaging musical that the story resonates with us because we can all relate to those paths of wanting to do the best we can
and Gina, you don't have to be Italian to like. The movie and the play were huge hits all over the world. I'm telling you, the one-man show was a huge hit. Another actor did it in France. Another actor did it in Rome. And it's the story that holds. And I think the musical, out of all three, is the greatest of all. Because it's operatic. It's these songs that doo-wop and songs from like the 60s. And people who see the show in New York on Broadway, the owner of the theater said, I never seen anything like it, where people leave the theater and they're buying tickets to see it again. It's pretty amazing. It's just a great, great show. And it's a great show for young people to see. I've seen so many people come over to me and say, the movie changed my son's life. And I said, really? I said, how? He said, my son was on drugs. He was on a bad path, but he saw the film and I watched it with him. And he said, Dad, I'm not going to waste my talent. So it inspires people, and so does the Broadway show. And it's not about gangsters. It's a family movie.
Right.
It's about love. Especially today. What's a better choice, love or fear? It's saying, it holds up today just as strong as it did back then.
Well, I can't wait for Cleveland audiences to see A Bronx Tale. It's a really special production and a wonderful musical. Alan Menken's music is just, Glenn Slater, they both have written this great score. And it moves in a way that Sergio Trujillo has added that wonderful choreography. So Cleveland, you're in for a great treat. So Chazz, thank you for being with us, and let's give Chazz a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I just want to say that Gina was telling me, because I said, wow, this is my first time here in Cleveland, and I was looking at all these theaters that you have here in this place, and I said, how many subscribers do you have? She was 45,000, and I was like, what? I mean, so I applaud you all for supporting the arts, because I'm going to go around the country. When I go around, I'm going to tell people what a great, great city Cleveland is, and how, really, and it's amazing how you support the arts here, because that's a great thing, because every time you see a performance, every night, that's a performance that's in everyone's mind, the 2,700 people here tonight, and every time you see that performance, that is a performance that could change lives, and the arts can move people and inspire people. So I applaud you all for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.